I remember reading a column, it wouldn't be fair to say by whom, but somebody who I knew, somebody who I had broken bread with in their own home, and somebody who I liked. And I read this column that was describing firefighters as if they were sort of Nazi infiltrators, well, communist infiltrators into the body politic, actual firefighters. I read this column and I listened to callers to my show and to other shows on LBC, and I saw what happened. I watched members of the public being groomed and gaslit into attacking firefighters, believing nonsense about them all having second homes in Ibiza and commuting from Barbados to do the job. And everything changed for me. Not overnight, but my old boss was right. I didn't used to be political. And then I started listening to you, for good and for ill, because I'd take call after call after call from firefighters, and I'd sit here utterly baffled about how anybody could have been so completely turned against the people that run into our house when it's on fire with the intention of carrying us and our children out. How can they ever have been our enemies? That's when I became political. Fast forward to the junior doctors' industrial action, and I wish we'd dropped the word junior from that for a whole heap of reasons. Fast forward to the doctors' strike, the non-consultant level doctors' strike, a couple of years ago, and it became even more stark that this Murdoch stroke, Mail stroke, Telegraph-led grooming process persuaded huge swathes of the British public, and I'm afraid obviously plenty of broadcasters are deeply guilty of this as well, encouraging the British public to turn on doctors. Just think about that in the context of what we just did a moment ago. The 140 healthcare workers whose death we properly commemorated, inadequately, but properly. Think about that on Thursday night when you're standing on your doorstep hitting a saucepan with a wooden spoon. Were you one of the people that used to ring LBC putting the boot into doctors and claiming they were greedy? Because you can't really do both with a clean conscience, can you? And unless they had demonised doctors so successfully, so disgustingly, I genuinely wonder whether they could have got away with this appalling depletion of PPE, absolutely highlighted put into a stark relief on Panorama last night, but very little in that programme would have come as a surprise to you if you've been listening to this programme, because the doctors and the nurses kept telling us. And then, of course, the same people that turned you against doctors during the doctors' strike, the same people that turned you against firefighters when firefighters were asking for your support as their pensions and their terms and conditions came under assault, the same people that turned you against teachers, the people into whose hands we entrust our children's lives every morning at 8:45, they became our enemies when they asked for our help in fighting some of the policies of the last 10 years. The doctors, the nurses, the firefighters, the teachers. If you got turned against all of them, then you're probably complicit in the scenario we're currently contemplating, where we're asking them to go to work ill-equipped. They're already understaffed. We know that. We know that Brexit is going to take another huge chunk out of the NHS staffing levels. And we know now, unless you're really, really clinging to it, we know now that the phrase, "we should train our own," was one of the most despicable examples of subtle racism that this country will ever see. We should train our own. How many of the dead were born elsewhere? Amazing, really, to think that they went to their graves with the words of some right-wing ghouls ringing in their ear that they should never have been here in the first place because we should have trained our own. Just think on that as you hit your saucepan with a wooden spoon on Thursday night, won't you? Because if they can pin it on the doctors and the nurses with the help of their despicable sponsors in the media, they will. And if you think I'm exaggerating or you think I'm making it up, then you are ignoring not ancient history, not even distant history. You're ignoring the last 2 or 3 years. Think what they did to the teachers. Think what they did to the firefighters. Think what they did to the doctors. And then look me in the eye and tell me that they won't try and pin this on the people who are risking everything, actually, just like every firefighter does every day, potentially, risking everything to keep the rest of us safe.